Today we're talking about the final part of the restoration of my 1968 or 70 maybe Gen Fuzz. What I've done to it, how I've done it, and why it needed it. Hi there, thanks for joining me today. My name's Marcus, this is Reeves Electro, and you're watching the Friday Finish. Hi there everybody, it's Carnage on the bench. As you can see, I've been tweaking away at the circuit and I've come to some conclusions. But first, before we get into all that, a little bit of housekeeping. Please, if you haven't subscribed and you're enjoying my content, feel free to hit the subscribe button wherever that is, and maybe even whiz over to Instagram at Reeves Electro and hit a follow on there. I really appreciate it if you want to do that. Where have I got to with this? Well, I've been on and off the breadboard this week and yesterday quite a bit, and it's kind of split into three projects. I'll explain more about that a little bit later, but basically the reinstatement, is that a word? Reinstation? The restoring anyway of the Gen Fuzz itself, and at what point do I take that to? That's one, which we'll talk about in a second. Two is a longer term project trying to match a set of components in that Gen Fuzz that is going to take longer than I have for this video. And secondly, there's a great fuzz circuit come out of it, which is pretty close to the circuit in there, but it's just got the diodes dropped, a couple of bits moved and some values changed, so which will probably be a fuzz circuit that I will be making up at some point, called the Super Gen. You heard it here first. SUPAGEN, the Super Gen, because it sounds very super fuzzy. It's very close to the Super Fuzz circuit, and it's come about because of this Gen Fuzz. So right, number one, the Gen Fuzz itself. What am I doing and why? Okay, so here it is. It's all done. What did I end up needing to do? Yes, so first of all, the enclosure. It was very, very crusty previously, and just had a lot of aluminium oxide, white aluminium oxide. You can see there's still some remnants around here. What I did was I gave it a really good scrub in the sink, and then brought it back out here and went very gently at it with some, it's difficult to see how it's come out really with this light for some reason. Oh, there we go. And then went very gently at it with some wire wool, with some steel wool, 000 grade, and that's about as good as it I want it to be. I'm not going to repaint it or anything. And then just to neutralize it, I used some of this bad boy stuff. Oh, the shadow's getting in the way. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, Monty's instrument food. It's I think it's kind of beeswax and a few other bits and pieces based. It's good gear, really is. I use it on my guitars, and it just kind of neutralizes it. And that's all I wanted to do. I didn't want to, put any lacquers or anything like that on it. So that's that. Given a good wash. You can see that it's actually there. The case is they did a jumbo fuzz as well, and they used the same enclosure because that had sliders in it. So that's pretty cool to see. So I'm going to put this back together again. A lot of people have been messaging me saying, oh, I think it's a 1970 or 71 unit. However, it's got a very old part number on the circuit board. They made a lot of these in the early 70s, but the Gen 280.054, somebody I trust has told me that it's a very, very early part number. It's difficult to find out when they first started making these, but around late 67, early 68 is when they started making Gen Fuzzes. Okay, there were some germanium ones. They were just kind of making fuzzes, and they were all called Gen Fuzzes, and they all had slightly different circuits in them. So it's a bit potluck, but I've been looking for this silicon one for a long time, and come across it. So that's groovy. I personally do think it's pre-1970, 69, 68, something like that. But people may have another opinion on that. So yeah, it's going to go back together with a new switch. Everything else is racking up okay. I'm going to leave the odd input jacks because that's just, you know, part of its history really. I may straighten up the wiring a little bit, but it doesn't really need it that much. The wiring into the circuit board is a bit crappy. I'm probably going to redo that. Other than that, it's going straight back in just with those mods that I mentioned. We had some people comment that the comparison videos weren't really like for like, so I've done some more comparison videos, and let's have a listen to those now, and then we'll come back and talk about the bits and pieces that I'm doing. Okay, hopefully that came across. I've had a listen. Sorry, for some reason the audio's come out of one side. Don't know why that's happened, but I'm not going to chase it round to find out. Unfortunately, I haven't got the time. So, yes, hopefully it came over just how harsh it is. It's painfully harsh. Now, if you're in a Velvet Underground covers band, or you know, a 60s psych rock or anything like that, it's probably a great pedal as it is. It certainly works better with the Les Paul or with humbuckers than it does with single coils. It's copable with, it's still on the very high side, but it's copable with humbuckers. But I predominantly use single coils, and I needed just to rein it in a little bit. So, what have I done? Well, as far as the timber of the thing is concerned, I was starting off. I was going to say, oh, let's change a load of components and, you know, get it. Blah, blah, blah. And you know, I slept on it a bit, and I thought, no, that's not really the way to go. This is a vintage Fuzz, and it needs to be reversible. So there is a trick that you can do where you put a on the input, you can put a capacitor to ground from the input of the circuit, and depending on the value of that capacitor, it starts to bleed off treble. Similar in a guitar. So I've experimented with that, and it's definitely, I've got it to the point which I think it's working. Now, for the moment, what I've actually done is, I don't know whether you can see there, I've dropped in a couple of sockets. That's ground, because that's coming from the ground that's switched. That's a switch ground from there. That's the ground coming into the switch, the general ground, common. And this is the circuit input. So this is an 18 nanofarad capacitor in there. And I'll try it, and I can swap the capacitors in and out fairly easily until I'm happy. I'll try it in a few circumstances. In the rehearsal room with the band, and recorded, and a few other bits and pieces, and see, you know, what works best for this. This leads on to project number 2. Okay, so as we spoke about on the first one, there are some diodes, going to some clipping diodes, and initially I wanted to take those out and build a circuit without them, because I thought that's what was bringing the harshness to it. But as I've added this and taken out the top end, I've realised that there's still a quality that those clipping diodes, in combination with the transistors, that it brings. It's very quick to go into very musical feedback for a start, which I like. It doesn't clean up very well, but there is definitely something about that combination. So I tried it on the breadboard, and I could get close, but it wasn't close. I could still hear the separation between the transistors and the clipping diodes, whereas here it's a very smooth amalgamation. They work very seamlessly together. So I'm going to be chasing that combination, but that I don't know how long that's going to take me. I've got to find some more, some different diodes, some different, these are unmarked. By the way, the transistors in here are unmarked. These TO98 cased transistors, they could be Sprague, they could be Toshiba, they could be Motorola, we don't know, they're not marked. So that's a very long-term project. I want to find out how that clipping arrangement kind of comes together, because it is a very, very nice thing. What else did I have to do? The switch, I've changed the switch. It's a modern switch I've dropped in there. Some people would say, oh, why haven't you put a period correct one in? Well, this is my Fuzz. If I do ever want to sell it, yeah, I'll probably put a vintage correct one in there, but I just pulled one off the shelf. Why did it need the switch changing? Well, the bypass wiring was very odd. So we're concentrating on this orange wire here. Okay, now previously what had happened is that this is the input. Okay, so this had gone from the input jack to the circuit, and then from the circuit to the switch. Okay, and that was it. Then on the other side is the bypass was done on the other side, so you had the blue wire going directly out and the pink wire going to the excuse me, losing my words, and the pink wire going to the circuit. Now, what was happening, because this was picking up some of the circuit, and it was, even in bypass, you were getting some bleed through of the fuzz. So what I did is I've detached the piece of wire that was coming from the input to the circuit, and it now goes from the input, changes color to red, and then goes to the switch. And in bypass, when all the contacts are south, basically the red wire is connected to this hoop here, which, ignore this black wire, that's the earth that goes to the middle, connected to this hoop here, jumps across to the blue and goes out. And then when all the switch contacts are north, again the signal comes in, goes to the circuit, goes across the circuit, through the circuit, down to the pink, oh no, sorry, my apologies, goes across the circuit, into the pink wire to the switch, across the contact and out. So that's how bypass works. So it was a bit of a mess there. There's a couple of bits that I tidied up as well, but that is as much as I've done. So, and I've just neatened it up a little bit. I didn't want to, you know, I mean, it's fine. It is fine. It's not what I would build, but it is fine. I've resoldered a couple of the joints, and you know, away we go. So that's finished, bar fine tuning what rating I put in there. Third project, the Super Gen. That is what you heard in the clip. There wasn't any clipping diodes on the breadboard. I pretty much, it's pretty much the I've got another copy of this if I know. It's pretty much this circuit, except for I've moved this junction here, and put a small capacitor in there, which again the size I haven't quite found out yet. These are scrapped, and I've changed the value of this, and this, and I'm still playing around with those just to get the tonality right, but that's it. It's pretty much a Gen Fuzz. I don't know whether that was informative or not. I'm going to be making these on a monthly basis now. Making them every week is starting to suck my time, and I really need to be building you guys fuzz pedals rather than making content. I know a lot of you enjoy this, and I really appreciate everybody's support for what I'm doing, but I don't want to lose sight of building fuzz pedals. So we're going monthly from now on. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your support. My name's Marcus. This is Reeves Electro. Remember, keep it fuzzy.